Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Wednesday, May 28th edition of the Daily Pulse, the show where we keep our finger on the pulse of the city of Lowell and the world around it. And of course, if it's Wednesday, well, you know what that means. I got my
guess who shows up?
My guest
like a
co-host.
like a bed penny, just doesn't go away.
Oh, I'm glad you're here because my other guest, he was too busy meeting with the VIPs from Beacon Hill to come join us here.
It is the way it is.
Former Lowell Mayor, former City Councilor, former head of schools at Lowell High School, Bill Samaras is here with us. Bill, now one of the, based on your background, all these formers that you have, you may be one of the foremost political pundits in the city. So I'm glad to have you here. We were hoping to have City Manager Tom Golden join us. Unfortunately,
kind of busy.
Fortunately, he is actually meeting. We saw the press release last week from the Housing and Livable Communities that Secretary Ed Augustus was going to be meeting with the manager today to talk about the long-term future of the ICC, the courthouses, and turn it into housing. We talked about that an awful lot last week with
important issues.
Councilor Corey Belanger, very important issues. They are meeting today. I reached out to the manager. I said, "Is it who are you choosing? You choosing Augustus or Russ?" I actually asked him, "Is he still coming?" And manager Golden said, "Yes, he was on his way to meet with Secretary of Augustus, and who knows? Maybe I've got some spotters out there trying to look for them to see if we can track their travels.
Corral them, trap them a little bit.
maybe if they're still around after I finish with you, I'll run over and try to track them down
and
myself.
Not let them go until we get an answer.
Yes, exactly. We want to know the answer. By the way, loyal listeners of the Daily Pulse, loyal viewers of the Daily Pulse, people who read Inside Lowell, you already know some of the missing information regarding the future of the Inn and Conference Center. It's being reported by many that it's going to stay as a shelter. What they're not telling you is that it's going to stay as a shelter for another full year. We told you that last week, right through end of calendar year 2026. The state is going to use that. And then what comes after? Well, that's the interesting discussion. We'll talk a little about that. We'll talk about last night's Lowell City Council budget hearing. Tame.
Very interesting.
By historical standards, but very interesting because something happened that you told me off air was kind of mind-boggling to you. We'll talk about how perhaps the new election system in Lowell has contributed to that. And then I want to talk to you about the fact that folks in city government, on the city council, Lowell's elected leaders are being basically called out, being called cowards for not, standing up to ICE and for DEI initiatives and whatnot. So I want to get your thoughts on all of that. And I'm curious, how would Bill Samaras react if he was sitting on the city council?
The issue is what's interesting about the city council, though, being called out to discuss, we'll say, national, international issues, okay? And the issue, and the real issue is, as a counselor, guess what? People want to make sure that their barrels are picked up, yard waste is picked up, that they're safe. If there's a fire, there's going to be a fire truck out in front of the house if necessary. It's the expectations for a city councilor. Today it's different.
Yeah,
very demanding, and almost change of life type of issue. Because, you could do such a great job, but if you change your mind or make a statement on a national issue that most people don't like, you're going to lose your local election.
Well, we will.
That's unheard of, really.
Yeah, we will talk about all of that with former Mayor Samaras. First, let me thank my Daily Pulse sponsors, Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. He's also a certified appraiser in both of those states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, or if you'd like said property appraised, Ray Booten is your man. You can find him online at realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. You'll notice we're here in the WellPoint studios. WellPoint is the only health plan offering health care benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole Point. Thanks to WellPoint, thanks to Ray, some other sponsors. You know the drill. We're going to thank them in a little bit, but let's get right down to it with former Mayor Bill Samaras. So the budget passed apparently last night with very little line-by-line debate. In fact, I would say no line-by-line debate.
Well, the thing is, I do believe, because, being on the council, you really had to read the budget. And the issue is, if you had a concern, you called somebody. If it was something in the police department, you may have called the chief of police up there. What's this line item? I don't understand it. Or you call the city manager or the assistant city manager, and you got your information. So I believe that everybody did their homework. And the idea that you can go down line by line, I mean, I suppose you could go down and say, well, let's cut $5,000 out of this. You work all night and cut maybe $40,000 out of the budget, sort of do some harm to it, and not accomplish really anything.
It's funny. A few of the councilors said that exact same thing last night. We could probably snip $1,000 here, $5,000 there.
But they were being honest.
But overall, it's a great budget. It's a lean budget. We kept as if $600 million can be lean. Yeah. We heard references to filet mignon and the fact that, Councilor 𝐿𝐥𝐥 doesn't eat steak, so it would have to be chicken. We found out about the dietary habits of
everybody. Yeah.
But let me ask you a question.
Well, the thing is, understand something. I mean, you have to trust your administration, and I think as councilors, they're going to do the work, and pretty much what you can cut, what you can't. Of course, in a $600 million budget, you can hide some things. And sometimes management...
The shell game I talk about, right?
Sometimes management will hide something to be able to do something in the future, something that they need. And that's called leadership.
Okay. So let me ask you, because you sat 5 different... actually, no, you went through 10 different budgets, didn't you?
8.
On the city council? 8. Okay. How closely did you really look at it? Because there's a subset of the population out there that says, you guys barely look at it. You say 1 or 2 lines for cosmetic reasons, but you're a rubber stamp. How closely did you look at your budget?
I know some people, literally went line for line. I looked at the entire budget, but I would look at the police department. There was a certain number of police I wanted in the police department. There's also... I had made a motion to put support people in the place of where they had policemen doing clerical work. I wanted to see the policemen on the street. So that's how I would look at the budget. Did it do that? Okay. So it was a lot of the issues that I had, and that's gave me the map to be able to look at the budget. And don't forget, I was in the school department for how many years? And the high school had a very large budget in itself. So I knew how to look at a budget and go for what I was interested in. And if there was really, we'll say, something that was, we'll say, I didn't like, I could see it.
What about this school budget? So if you missed last night's meeting, and by the way, Ryan Gilday has a recap on InsideLowell.com. The Lowell Citizen Ryan Gilday has his Government Was Happening column, so go check it out. He's picked out 6 different points from the council meeting. But last night, the schools got pretty much what they wanted.
What they wanted.
The city of Lowell, Councilor John Dakota made a motion.
Correct.
Let's grab $2 million from the, whatever you want to call it, the rainy day fund, the free cash, call it whatever you want. But the city of Lowell, the city council voted last night, and the manager, and more importantly, the CFO, Connor Baldwin, actually went along with it and said, let's do it. Now, Connor Baldwin did warn. He said, listen, there's a risk at the end of the year if we can't replace that stabilization fund money. We're going to take a credit hit with Moody's, and with all this borrowing coming up, that could come back to bite us.
He's correct. I'll tell you.
I was stunned to hear him leave the door open. He pushed back. He said, this is what could happen. He tried to warn them, but he left the door open, and so did the manager.
No, the whole thing is the manager and the finance, they have to, that's what they have to do. They have to say, okay, here it is. This is what you can do, because they can with that. But the thing is, without saying the sky's falling, it was sort of like an intellectual ride. These are the possibilities. And so the thing is, there was no the sky is falling, but there are possibilities out there. And what happened was, for the first time, now picture over 40 years in the school department, that I ever saw the Lowell City Council on their own put money into school department.
That's never happened before?
Never happened before.
Okay.
I absolutely cannot think of a time when that happened.
So we broke new ground last night.
And these were times when the school department was desperate, not. And the thing is,
Are you saying they're not desperate now?
No.
The superintendent sat here last Thursday and talked about the desperate times. We're catastrophic cuts. I'm not, my word, not his, but that was the message that we were getting. If we don't get our $4 million, no kid will ever be able to read and write in Lowell or do arithmetic. They'll probably know how to make pins for Palestinians, but they won't know how to read or write.
The issue is, the superintendent did his job and said, I'm looking for the most money I can get to keep the department at this level plus. That's their job.
All right. Thank you for saying that. The superintendent did his job. His job is to advocate for as much money as he can get.
I mean, you have to look at it. I mean, you may not like it.
The city council's job is to do what's best for all the taxpayers. And maybe, just maybe, since the school committee does not want to draw a hard line on spending in the school budget, I was hoping that this city council, I had so much hope that this was the city council that was going to say, no, we're not going to. And they caved. And I want to give some credit to Councillor Robinson, who did kind of talk about the elephant in the room, like saying, okay, you got what you want. He goes, I don't want to be here again in 12 months with the same issue.
Okay. I'll take you on about the word cave.
Okay.
All right. I mean,
my word, not yours, right?
No, really. I mean, because I don't think they caved. Okay. But I think it's a different city council. Now that we have district councilors, they're coming in with a different attitude than they did have citywide. But the issue is, I didn't catch all of the meeting last night. As I told you, I was babysitting the grand dogs, but I caught the end of the budget session, and I heard them discuss how pleased they were with the city manager. They've had, the city council and the school department have had a good run in the past few years. Money has been available.
Oh, it's been falling off the tree. That's their money, ARPA money. Okay. They've been bathing in money.
So at this point, they're still living in that climate. And so it gives you a little more courage to, you know what, I guess we can afford to do this. But the thing is, I have to say, I'm a little more conservative. I don't know how I would have voted last night regarding that. Because, yes, I mean, I've worked in the school department all my life. I mean, I would want to support the school department. But the issue with the budget and the rainy day fund, there are going to be rainy days coming up. There's no question in my mind.
100. I think you're going to have a Noah and the Ark type of flood. But so you just said something interesting. You don't know how you would have voted last night.
Yeah.
Would your vote have been different, had to be different, if you were the district councilor? In your particular case, you ran for District 3 versus at large. You said something interesting. You said that the system has changed to district councils, and it's changed the way the council does its business. And you're pointing to the fact that first time in memory, they actually, I'll say the word again, cave. My word, not yours. Is that a direct result of the new system?
I think being district councils, I think they feel more responsible for the schools. I think it's an idea of responsibility. And when I say I don't know how I'd vote, I mean I've follow what's going on. But I just see it from a surface point of view, okay? What I might see in an article in the paper, what I might hear from your show, or what I might pick up on the street, not where I was at one time, going to the superintendent of schools saying, look, you're asking for this, why? I really want to know. And the thing is, sometimes we didn't get good answers. But the thing is, I think they're getting more information now than we ever really did. I think there's more trust in the information that they're receiving.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, but the thing is, and I'm not saying things were done not in a trustful manner. It's just what it is.
There wasn't as much transparency in a previous era?
You just didn't say it's just the way it was.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. And I am not a budget expert.
Yeah.
I just play one on a podcast, used to play one on radio, and I occasionally play one in a blog or column. But $14 million more the schools got this year than last year. That's a 5.5% increase.
Yep.
And they're telling you they can't live without the extra $4 million from the city, which would have been a $7.5 million increase. So I'm guessing with $2 million, they have a 6.5% budget increase. Yeah. Either way, they couldn't live with a 5.5% budget increase. That was going to be catastrophic to them. That screams to me they've got a structural problem in that budget. That, yeah, they got some money this year, and maybe, just maybe, the state will funnel a few more million to them, and they'll get everything they wanted. Corey Robinson said last night, District 2 City Councilor Corey Robinson says, what about 12 months from now? Are we going to be back here again?
Yes.
He asked that question, and I immediately texted him, oh, no, you won't be. He said, are we going to be in the same place? I said, 100% you're not going to be in the same place. I said, you're going to be in a worse place next year because the state won't be able to give the schools $18 million more like they did last year. I think the state's in a lot of trouble financially, budget-wise. I think they're also at risk of monies coming from D.C. that they're jeopardizing. At some point, you got to start addressing what I'm calling a structural deficit. And by the way, I do talk to people who know how to do budgets, and they have said to me, it sounds like they have a structural deficit problem. You know school budgets. Do they have a structural problem if they can't live on a 5.5% increase?
Well, let's put it this way. There were times I got a call from the superintendent, and the superintendent said, I want you to cut $400,000 out of your budget, the high school budget. Or I went before the school committee on the floor saying that we had to take cuts at the high school of a certain amount of money. And I can remember, the anguish and pain that I displayed in telling them what would happen to the high school if they made those cuts, or if they forced me into making those cuts. Now, would the high school have collapsed? No, it wouldn't have. Because what happens, there would be a complete reorganization of how you do things and what you look at. And do you affect the paper supply and say, okay, we have 1/3 of our papers left this year, cut the order, and you do certain things.
You do what every taxpayer household does every year. You make choices.
You make choices.
You know what you have for money, and you make choices. You can't just go out and.
But what I'm saying is,
grab it from the taxpayers.
If you ask me to make a cut, I'm going to hold my heart, okay, breathe a little heavy, and say, "What are you doing to me?"
Which is your job. I fully understand that. And again, that is why I'm not disappointed at the school committee. I am over their last contract negotiation. I can't even blame Liam Skinner or anybody else working in those schools. Yeah. But man, I think the city council caved. And I think I wish the manager and the CFO had pushed back a little bit harder and said, this is what's going to happen next year. Just so you know, you're throwing them a lifeline, but that rope's not big enough to bring them back on the boat.
But as I said, not having all of the information in front of me, this is where they are. But this is how I'm looking at the district councilors. They're working differently than the original 9 citywide council worked. Okay, and the city manager, it's not an issue of who's doing a better job or what have you. I mean, the thing is, right now, what's happened is with the management the city manager has shown. I mean, he has taken them in the past several years. They have been able to, we'll say, hot top more roads, paint more lines on streets,
Fix more schools.
I mean,
Even though there's a lot of skepticism being thrown at that, right?
No.
Some folks will tell you those maintenance of effort numbers are phony.
no, I don't believe so.
I tend to agree.
I believe there's been a real issue to make those schools work. There's no question about that to me. But it's different. It's a different time. So the thing is, they reacted differently. But being the age I am and being from the background I came in, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I'm worried about it. That's the only way. I mean, did they make a wrong move? I can't say they made a wrong move. Did they make a right move? Really?
You can't say that either, can you?
No. Yeah. But the thing is, they work to make a difference. But the thing is, the city manager has stated very clearly, and the business manager, that there's a price that you might have to pay, and it's not, and it was not done as scare tactics. It was done as a matter of fact. So they're all grown-ups, and they made their decision.
All right. And the taxpayers of Lowell will live with it when next year you have a 4.5% to 5% budget increase, and the schools say that's not enough. We're chatting with Bill Samaras, former Lowell mayor, city councilor, and head of Lowell High School. He's our guest, as always, guest host, I should say, on our Wednesday editions of the Daily Pulse. And today he stepped into the lion's den all by himself. No counselors or managers to deflect attention for him. We'll get right back to it. We'll wrap up our budget talk. Plus, I want to drag him into the next controversy I see coming. First, let me thank all of our Daily Pulse sponsors. Ray Booten, licensed realtor, Mass and New Hampshire. Find him online, realestaterayBooten.com. Thanks as well to our friends at WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Thank you to Washington Savings Bank, banking that feels like home. And what's more homey than a Washington Savings Bank coffee mug or whatever you want to pour into it? Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925. The Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in our communities through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis C. Prevention Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell has counted on to protect its most valuable assets since 1982, and by the Massachusetts Pirates. They're bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City tomorrow night, Thursday, May 29th, their next game at the Tsonga Center. Rare Thursday night game. You want tickets to that game? Free tickets? Shoot an email, info@InsideLowell.com. If you're one of the first to do so, we'll get you a couple of free tickets. Info@InsideLowell.com for some free Pirates tickets. Back to former Lowell Mayor Bill Samaras and last night's city council meeting. I do want to talk about the facilities department. Yeah. That got shot down by the school committee last Wednesday night after we did our podcast. City council trying to revive it. I have a hunch that the school committee might be more agreeable to it now that they got their $2 million out of the rainy day fund. But I still think there's going to be some opposition from certain folks who right now report to somebody else. Their accountability is to somebody else, in particular custodians, unions, and they don't want to be accountable to a new boss. How is that going to play out?
Well, the thing is,
will there now be some agreement?
It'll probably be put off. Sometimes when things have settled, there are a lot of other things. We'll work on it, but it goes off into the dust. I really think it should be resolved, because the thing is, I think what the city manager and the superintendent have been talking about working together, it's ideal. It's the way it should be, because the issue is there's all kinds of maintenance you want for the building. If the air conditioning system breaks down, you want to have somebody on staff that can come in and fix it. But in a school, there's a lot of, well, something happened and room 8 has to be repainted. Doesn't have to be an act of God to get it repainted. The principal should be able to work with his staff and do some touch-up work or whatever is required. And I think if they make this type of move, it'll give the principals more power and actually put the custodians in a position where they'll be part of a team doing a complete job. That's what you have to have.
When you were on the council, I remember a lot of talk about punch lists, repair punch lists in the schools, and how they never you were never able to punch all the things off the list. Now, part of it is because old buildings by now, even our newest buildings were 30 years plus old, but old buildings need work. But even then, I got the sense that folks were not happy, saying we're not making as much progress on the punch list as we should be making. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah. Why?
Who was not doing their job? Was it a management issue? Was it a labor issue down at the bottom? Why wasn't that punch list being cleared more quickly?
Because there wasn't a clear line of administration regarding that. Okay, because the principal's responsible for everything in his or her building. All right, but the thing is, the principal, can only ask the custodians to do so much. Then he has to put in a requisition to have something painted or window fixed or what have you. And then it goes down to someone at central office to fix it. And who that someone is had to then talk to someone in the city department. And first of all, the paperwork got sometimes lost. Sometimes it just...
The dog ate the paperwork? Is that...
Didn't go that fast. I mean, so it ended up really like communication. Tell you the truth, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but there were some times when I wanted something done and I just wasn't getting it done. So, and I had the union, my own teachers union, complaining with me, against me, saying, what are you doing about it? And what I would do, I'd make a call and saying, I'm calling the Lowell Sun. At the time, what do you mean you call? I'm calling the Lowell Sun. I'm going to have them down here. Or someone from the Lowell Sun leaked out a story, and they're coming down. I don't know how we got there. I was the one that.
Are you admitting to being the leak?
I was the leak. Okay, and guess what? It got done. This over the years, and that was not the way to do things.
But you're saying that you're confident.
It was done under duress sometimes.
You're confident the facilities department will alleviate some of these issues, but you're thinking it gets shelved. Interestingly enough, yesterday on the Daily Pulse, Lee Ghitchier, not Eric Ghitchier, Lee Ghitchier, and I made a bet. I said it gets done within the next 5 years. He said no. How long did it get tabled for?
And why I say it might get shelved? I mean, because once the budget items... During the budget, you make a lot of changes. You can make the changes. Once the changes have been made, you want to do that. But the thing is, the city manager or the superintendent, they're called to do many, many other things. The one thing about those jobs, I mean, I'll just talk now about the city manager's job. I mean, it truly is a 24/7 job, and I get a kick out of, Manager Golden, because Saturdays and Sundays is his day off in a sense to take several hours of his time just to go through the city to see if what he's asked to be done has been done. And that's what you have to do. It's round the clock. It's not, and when I say round the clock, because at 11 o'clock you're getting a call, there's a kind of a leak in the 22 building. Yeah.
I don't feel bad for him. He gets paid enough.
Yeah.
He should try the restaurant industry if he wants to work
But what I'm
around
saying,
the clock.
but what I'm saying is that's so no, they're doing all of those other things, and then things get pushed off to the side.
All right. Before leaving the budget, and before everything happened so quickly and peacefully without nary a cut or criticism, there was a point early in the meeting where I thought, okay, it might get interesting. And that was when Councilor 𝐃𝐢𝐥𝐥 first spoke about the budget, and he started talking about pay raises and what he called huge increases over the last 2 years for certain management types. He didn't say the specific jobs, but I think it was like some department heads, some assistant department heads, deputies, etc. The manager pushed back on that, giving an explanation for why he said it appeared like it was a 9% or 14% increase in a year, but it really wasn't, because it was budgetary mumbo jumbo, and then it was quickly dropped.
The thing is, Councilor Mercia went into, look, we ordered the city manager to look at the salaries. I mean, I know before I left the city council, we were asking the city manager to look at the salaries. I mean, there were certain positions where some people in Lowell were doing 3 jobs for, say, $60,000. One person I know left that 3-position job for $60,000 and went to another city, smaller than Lowell, but a city for $85,000 for 1 job. And so the thing is, it's the salaries have gone up out there. And the thing is, salaries in Lowell were really behind the apple cart, so to speak. And now they've gone up. But the issue now is, how much can we as a city afford to pay?
So that's where I want to go with this. So Councilor 𝐃𝐢𝐥𝐥 said, listen, he says, you got a huge chunk of Lowell's population that makes less than $25,000 a year, which is the stipend a councilor gets. And he cited all, how many people in Lowell make less than $70,000 a year versus how many employees are making more than 70. And I get it. So Lowell is a relatively poor city. Here's the challenge I have for people who want to tell us that they want to be, save the taxpayers' monies. I don't think saving $15,000 on a deputy superintendent's position is breaking the budget. What is breaking the budget is the overall payroll, which is about 75 to 80% of your budget.
Correct.
The benefits and the retirements.
Correct.
So there's only one way to really cut into the budget and save money. All right. And that is, you're going to reduce services. And reducing services means you're reducing staff. Nobody ever wants to reduce staff. As a matter of fact, this city council has shown a voracious appetite, whether it's for filet mignon or chicken, for increasing the level of service. No, we want to pave more roads. We want to fix more schools. We want a facilities department. We want XYZ. You can't tell the taxpayers that you're watching out for their money and saying you're going to grow the service. At some point, government is going to have to make a decision. Either they're going to raise taxes to the level to fund the services, and the taxpayers will either have to live with it or vote for real change, or they're going to have to enact that real change. And that real change is, you're going to have to cut the services one way or another. People can't keep getting the level of service they've been getting without an increase in taxes.
Well, the issue, the past say 8 or 9 years prior to COVID, things were pretty good money-wise. Money was increasing. After COVID, money, flowed into the cities. It's been different. It's been different. I came from a time in the budget where for 8 years in a row, at the end of the year, I received a letter saying I no longer had a job. Because legally, to be let go, you had it by, I think, May. You had to have the letter in your hand. So if the city didn't want to couldn't afford to bring you back, they didn't. For 8 years, I was losing my job.
Interesting.
Okay.
But you kept coming back.
The kids that I call them kids that are working today, have never seen that. I hate to say it, I think that's coming at some point.
We shall see. A fellow Greek who we both respect very much predicted it in 2010. It's been 15 years. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But I do have a hunch it might be it might be closer than before. We'll see.
Yep.
I thought COVID was going to be the event that finally brought that the public sector the private sector can no longer afford the public sector. And unfortunately, COVID made it worse. They just started printing money and distributing it, and now your structural budget issues are even worse than they were pre-COVID.
It's, you know, the great minds. I mean, you listen to the experts. We're fine. The world's ending. It's a day-by-day situation.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a natural transition to, as we say here at the Daily Pulse, we like to keep our finger on the pulse of Lowell and the world around it. The world around Lowell is coming to Lowell. ICE making arrests. We published a story last week. A bunch of folks, it turns out they were working for a roofing company, were arrested at a gas station on Bridge Street in Lowell. That was just the latest in a number of ICE arrests. So far, the city council has stayed quiet. We haven't seen any Worcester situations where politicians are going out there. We haven't seen a New Jersey situation. However, there are now some well-known voices basically saying, hey, you shouldn't be staying silent. I'm saying they're basically calling political leaders cowards for not speaking out against ICE.
Well, the thing is, we're talking about Lowell city councilors. Their responsibility really is to run the city of Lowell and, you know, make sure that the taxpayers are getting their best value for the dollar. And that's a hard job in of itself. But every so often, you know, somebody will come up with, there's something going on in another country, and, you know, let's say put in make a motion that we're in opposition to it. And what happens sometimes, everybody votes, we're in opposition to it, the letter goes off, whatever. But it's it's not going to change anything anywhere or what have you. But people like to see that. But the thing is, it's not the city council's job. The job is to do what it is. Now, the thing is, originally, the people tried to make Lowell a sanctuary city.
Correct.
Okay.
You were on that council.
Yes. And first of all, there is no law. Sanctuary city is not something that has specific laws that you do things a certain way. It's just a term. It's all it is. It's just a term. It has no legal ramifications to me whatsoever. But at the same time, the city council worked with the city manager, worked with the police department to ensure that the immigrants that came into the city of Lowell felt welcomed, okay, and that they were supported. And that the police would not be in the position of battering doors down or what have you. But if ICE came in, you know, the police wouldn't take an action with ICE. But what's been happening, agitation on all sides has created a thing where ICE needs the police to protect them to do their job. That's not the way things should be.
We saw that in Worcester. The Worcester police had to be called in because a bunch of residents and others were starting to interfere with
there are people that speak and they want anarchy. This is a great country. And this country has done a lot. But this issue with ICE and what have you, has it been handled the best way possible? No.
Would you speak up if you were in office today? Would you heed the calls to speak up and take some leadership and speak out against ICE and do more to let your immigrant communities know that they're valued?
The issue is, I think my record at the high school and everywhere, I mean, I believe Lowell is a welcoming city and should be. It's an immigrant city. The strength of Lowell has been to welcome immigrants and what have you. The thing is to do it right, and our job is to ensure that everybody's rights are protected. But the thing is not to put but ICE has a responsibility. But the thing is, I see our legislators and what have you have to work more closely with the president and with the various departments to ensure that things are done properly and legally.
Well, one thing that was interesting to me, because you've got, levels of government, right? You got municipal government here, state government, the constitutional, the 4 constitutional offices, and then you go up to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I'm curious, and by the way, tomorrow we will have Melanie Gilbert from the Lowell Sun, who spoke to a community leader who made that call, a community leader who didn't want to give their name. What kind of community leader doesn't give their name? I found that one interesting.
The thing is, we have a lot of people that just come into the, and they speak. There are people who come before the city council, and they have a lot to say, and we listen because they have something to say, and they're concerned, and they want to help. Then there are those who just come in and say, "You're not doing your job. This is what you got to do." Well, if this is what let them run for office or what have you. I'm sick and tired of people saying, this is what they have to do.
See, this is the Bill Samaras I love to draw. Run for office, or as my guest yesterday, Lee Gitcher, said, why don't you go out and lead the protest against ICE? Go ahead, break the law. And by the way, one of the things that bugs me is there's a lot of factual misinformation being put out there. For starters, this whole, ICE cannot, or any law enforcement agency cannot, or do something, you need a warrant? No, you don't. You need a warrant to go out into somebody's house. But we watch every single day. We drive by Lowell police officers arresting somebody by the side of the road, or when a crime happens on the street, when somebody shoots or stabs somebody, you don't need to go get a warrant. When somebody breaks a law, you can arrest. Now, to go search a private property, yes. You need a warrant, but can we at least start giving factual information before we incite people to do something that will get them in trouble?
But the thing is, somebody comes along and says, you've got to, there's, I've seen too much between the Republicans and Democrats where they're advocating violence. Both sides, they're advocating violence. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Okay, so what you have is it's the responsibility of the city council to work with the city manager to run the city right. And then to have the city manager contact the state of reps and state senator and what have you to talk about the responsibility of the state towards doing this. And then the state senator and the representative and the governor to work with the federal government. That seems to be lost. What's wrong with trying to work together to solve the problem? But
because
the thing
if you actually solve a problem, you lose a political talking point, a fundraising letter, and all this other stuff. But that's where I was trying to. But that's what it's calling on the. So the state legislature, the Lowell state reps and Lowell state senator have more power than the city councilors to speak out against ICE. Conversely, the governor has more, and conversely, the congresswomen and the senators have more. But they've been relatively. I don't see them out on the street charging at ICE officers.
But the issue is I think what people want is they want the government to work, and they want them to work together. But there are too many people advocating. You're either on my side or think the way I think, or that. No. The thing, the council's got to do. They're doing their job to make the city work. Right. The state's got to do their job to make sure the state works, and the federal government's got. And we're not communicating with each other. I'm afraid of what I see out there.
So you would not, if you were on the city council today, heed these calls to be more forceful in opposition against.
No, I want to go the direction I want to go in. I want my city manager working with the state to make this. To not put us in those situations, to work with the federal government not to put us in those situations.
Silence is complicity, they will argue.
No, that's not silence. That's doing our job.
Trying not to draw attention to yourself it makes it worse, we're told.
It's bull.
I agree with you, but it's nice to hear somebody else say it.
The thing is, I've talked to so many people who are caring. But the thing is, with what's been going on with, we'll say, race relations and what have you. I've talked to so many people who all their life have tried to work together and what have you. And the thing is, there's too much, in a sense, negativity out there. We've got to look at what's made this country great, and we got to ensure that we can come together, and support everybody in this country to show them why this country is great. But the thing is, today if you're not out there screaming and trying to break through a line and hurt somebody, you're not doing your job.
If you're not with us, you're against us.
Yeah.
Is the motto. You don't ascribe to that.
Let's put it this way: let the city council do their job, and the thing is, what do they do? What are the city council doing? They're looking for better housing. The issue that they're concerned with the hotel is they don't want that to be a drop-in center. They'd like to make that into housing, real housing, low-income housing. The thing is, there's areas with the courthouse. You're talking market rate housing, low-income housing. That's what's going to make the city strong, and that's what's going to help the migrants that are in this city and the immigrants. A good place to live and support.
Sounds like a U.S. Senate campaign, let alone a city council campaign.
No, I mean,
maybe I'm trying to force you to run for the wrong office.
No, but Teddy, I mean, we're not talking about evil. We want any harm to be. I'm going to tell you something. What's impressed me? One time we had a Laotian flag raising, and there was a gentleman from Laos who gave a speech, and he said, "I came here with my wife because the streets were made with gold. And you know what I found out? They were. Because my wife and I both had 2 jobs. And we worked, and we put our kids through college, and we did this, and this." I mean, we're talking about people new to the country. They came in, they worked hard. When they talked about the streets paved with gold, yeah, if you work for it. They worked double jobs, and they put their kids through educate and got a great education, very successful.
I hate to tell you, that's not what the kids are being taught today. They're being taught that you should be coming to you, and you're smart. Like you shouldn't even work 2 jobs. That's very racist of you. How about 40 hours? And even then, let's get to a 4-day work week. Yeah. Why do we need a 40-hour work week? You're smart enough and you've lived long enough to know nobody's getting out of poverty working 1 job or 40 hours a week. Yeah. Right?
Correct.
Not unless you get yourself an education and that 1 job becomes.
No, I know how many jobs I had while I was teaching. I was gone.
You had a second job when you were teaching?
Absolutely.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Blasphemy.
Yeah.
All right. Have we gotten you into enough trouble for one day? You going to get enough phone calls and texts?
I think I'm going to take a vacation.
I'll see you next Wednesday.
Go away.
I'll see you next Wednesday. I'll bring somebody else in to take the heat with you.
Thank you.
All right. Former Lowell Mayor Bill Samaras, our Wednesday co-host here on the Daily Pulse. We thank him for joining us. We thank you for joining us as well as we Inside Lowell. If Lowell is your home, this is your place. Till next time, everybody stay safe, enjoy the beautiful weather out there, and we'll catch you on the other side.